Hello and welcome to the Beth Emanuel Virtual Kollel. My name is Aaron, and we are studying today Parashat Ki Tetze, which comes from the book of Deuteronomy in chapter 21, and it starts in verse 10. So let me just share my screen with you, and you can follow along with me. Okay, now we're looking at the website Sefaria, and you can see we are in the book of Devarim. That's Deuteronomy. We're looking for chapter 21:10. So we're in chapter Kof Aleph. And let's scoot down to verse 10, which is Pasuk Yod. Here it is. I'm going to read it for you, and you can follow along, and then I will break it down. Ki tetze la milchama al oivecha, unetano Adonai Elohecha biyadecha vishavita shivyo. Okay, not too bad. The word ki refers to, as I said before, a kind of a cause and effect. It can be translated a few different ways, but what it is in this case is going to be something like when, right? So it's describing a time or in the situation that. Let's Tetze. That is so the root of this word Tetze is Yod Tzadi Aleph. Now remember, I said that most Hebrew words have a three-letter root, and we call that in Hebrew a shoresh. That just literally means root, like the root of a tree. And that gets compounded with prefixes, suffixes, and verb patterns to make certain words. And sometimes, as it turns out, one of those letters from the shoresh disappears, and that makes it difficult for beginners to determine the meaning of the word. But after a while, you'll get used to it. In this case, the yod dropped out, and so the root is yatsa, and that means to go out, to exit, it's like related to the word that's used for the exodus from Egypt. And now it starts with the tav. When a verb starts with the tav, that usually means that it's second person, so you, and it's imperfect, like a future tense. So in this case, it's you will go out. Okay, so tetze means you will go out, and ki being when. So when you will go out. La milchama. Okay, the root of this word is lamed chet mem, which you might actually recognize from the noun lechem, which means bread, but this is a different word that doesn't at least directly relate to that. As a verb, that means to wage war, to fight, to contend, and now this is not a verb, this is a noun built on that verb. So as I said last week, sometimes you'll have a noun that's made out of a verb with a mem in the front, just like mitzvah is a noun meaning command based on the verb to command. Milchama is a noun built on this root to fight. So this is a battle, okay, or a war. The letter right here is a preposition prefix. We run into that quite a bit. La, meaning to the, or for the. Okay, so when you go out to the war or to the battle, al. Now this is a preposition. It can mean lots of different things. Its most common or basic meaning is something like on or over, but it's also in this context something more like against. Okay, so when you go out to battle, against. Oivecha. Now you might think of the Yiddish phrase oive. That sounds familiar in there, and that might be a good way to remember this word, but it isn't actually linguistically related. All right, let's break it down a little bit. We have this ending echa, and that's a possessive ending. So it's second person, so it's your. Okay, so and then it's describing something plural, and we know that because it's this a vowel with a yod in there. Okay, so normally this would be oivim, And as a singular word, it would be oyev. Oyev. And an oyev is an enemy. All right. So this word ends up meaning your enemies. Al oivecha, against your enemies. Okay. So when you go out to war against your enemies, unetano. Okay. The root of this is nun tav nun. This vav just means and this is an object suffix. So, you'll notice that Hebrew has a lot of suffixes, and the suffixes are often referring to pronouns like him or his or her. And when it's on, here's a tip: when it's on a noun, like oyev is a noun, then it ends up being possessive, right? So if it's on horse, it's going to be your horse. But if it's on a verb, like in this case, is it on a verb? It's going to be an object. So to give. So this is like enemy, your enemy, and this is give, gives him. He gives him, and so the object of what the verb is reflected in that pronoun. So anyway, and so he gives him, or he has given him, or this might be in a conversive, because this and right here may be reversing the tense, because it looks like the word normally natan, it means he gave, he has given, or he gave. But often when a verb in biblical Hebrew is prefixed by this and, it reverses the tense. So instead of he gave, it becomes he will give. Okay. And then the O on the end means him. And who is he? Well, I would suppose that it would be the enemy. Even though enemy is plural here, the context kind of indicates that enemy is what's being referred to. Okay, great. And now this is the name of God, right? So we usually translate it as the Lord. And then Elohecha, this is the same echa ending, your, plus the word for God, Elohim. So Elohecha means your God. So the Lord your God. And so he gives him, the Lord your God, biyadecha. Okay. So the root of this is yad. It's a noun. It means hand. And then this it has that ending, the pronominal ending. Now, where this one was plural, you could see the yod in there makes it plural. This one's singular. So it's your hand, not your hands. And then this is a prefix that means in or with. So in a literal way, it would be in your hand. Now, hand, like many body parts, I think we ran into this last week. Body parts tend to be very commonly idioms. And in this case, the hand refers to power or care or control, and in this case, something like control. So the Lord your God gives him into your control. So you have victory over it. So vishavita shivyo. Okay, and so in this case, we have the root shaveh, I believe, shin beit hey. Now, I'm not 100% sure on that, and I think that it is to take captives, and the shvuyim are captives. So his captives. So you're taking his captives. Let me just pull out one of my favorite tools, and that is BibleWorks. And this is a great program for Windows. And here I can just hover over it. Yeah, so Shin Beit Hey Shava, to take captive. You can see that that's the meaning of that word. And then the Shvi is the captive. So, oh, great. So now we know when you go out to war against your enemies, and the Lord your God gives him into your hand, and you take his captives, his captive. You take him captive. Okay. All right. We've got one verse down. Let's move on to verse 11. V'ra'ita bashivya eshet yifat to'ar. V'chashakta va v'lakachta lecha leisha. Okay, so this word vira'ita is it comes from the root resh, aleph, and then hey. And the hey, just what happens with in this verb kind of form when you have a hey as the third root, the third letter of the root, often it will just switch to a yod like that. So that's what happens. But resh aleph hey means to see, and normally if I have just this ra'ita, and the stress would be on e, it means you have seen or you saw. But then this vav comes in and reverses the tense. And then actually what happens in this particular form is that the stress goes to the end of the word. So now we know it's not just and you saw. This vav really is switching the tense and becomes vira'ita. And this mark right here is helping me know that the stress is at the end. Anyway, and that since it reverses the tense, that means something more like and you will see, because this is in that hypothetical situation. So and you see ba shivya. Ba shivya. So shivya is the captives, is like the captivity or the set of captive people, right? And ba means in the, in. So b is the in, and then the underneath it makes it more like an the. So in the captivity, among the captives. So you see among the captives, Eshet Yafat To'ar. So Eshet is the normal form of that is Isha. It means woman or wife. And this happens to be in a noun construct. And I've told you in the past that a noun construct is a very common grammatical form in Hebrew where you have one noun describing another noun. So, for example, we do that in English when we might say it's a bookshelf or a refrigerator truck, or, there's all kinds of cases where we do that. Or we'll do that with using the word of. We could say like it's a crate of milk cartons or something like that. And in that case, you've got an of in between, but you're still describing the crate by its contents, for example. So the way it works in Hebrew is you put the words together, and then it's in the order that it would be in if it had an of in it. So we can usually just translate it with an of. And then often all but the last word in the noun construct will take on a modified form, and that's not always the case, but certain words just tend to modify like that as the stress gets pulled out to the end. So Isha ends up becoming Eshet, and you might recognize that if you're familiar with the Friday night blessings and the Proverbs 31, where it talks about the woman of virtue, Eshet Chayil in that case. And so it's a woman of, right? Eshet is a woman of. And now this next word, Yifat, is really, it means beauty. It's not beautiful. It's the noun. I would say it's Yefeh, and it's in the noun construct. So it's Yifat. Okay, so a woman of beauty of, because this is also in a noun construct with this one, To'ar. To'ar means appearance or shape. Okay, so it's a form. So beauty of form. Okay, so the form is described by beauty, and the woman is described by this beauty of form. So okay, she is a good-looking woman. Pretty simple to translate. Okay, something along those lines. Okay, so you see among the captives a beautiful woman, or a woman of beautiful form, or a good-looking woman. V'chashakta va. So this is similar to this chashakta is similar to ra'ita. It's looks like it's past tense, but it's reversed, so it's future tense. The root is right there. It's chashak, and it means to desire, and it's like a deep emotional desire. In this case, of course, probably more of a chemical, biological desire, and it means it has the ta on the end. It's telling you it's you, and then the vav reverses it to a future tense or an imperfect tense. So you will desire her. So her is this word right here. It's bait, this letter bait. It's normally would be ba, but because these two words go together and it ends with a vowel sound, it just becomes va. And the bait means, usually we translate it as in or with, like here, among the captives, among. But sometimes it's just this preposition is just used with certain verbs to indicate the object. So it just depends on how the verb is used. And this word chashak tends to use a beit to indicate the object. So, and now on the end means her, right? It's the feminine third person ending. It's always the feminine third person ending. In this case now, so it's you desire her. Great. Okay. Vilakachta. So again, it's in that same sort of form as ra'ita, v'chashakta, vilakachta. And the root is lakach. That means to take. Okay, so it's you, and it's reversed to a will, or not. I don't want to say will. It's not saying that you will. It's presenting a hypothetical. See, this is part of the difference between saying a future tense, because every time you hear me say a future tense, I kind of cringe, and then I backtrack and I say no, it's imperfect tense. That's because Hebrew doesn't have the subtleties that English does, or the nuance when it's got two tenses really to work with, perfect or imperfect. In this case, it's an imperfect, and it's not just describing something that will necessarily happen. It's describing a hypothetical situation that might happen, and so maybe we call that like a subjunctive mood. But there's nothing in the grammatical form to indicate that. You just get that by the context, and the context is this ki tetze la milchama, if or when you go to war, and you can tell that it by the context, it's describing something hypothetical. So it's not instructing you that you have to take. It's saying that if it happens, that you take, right, in a hypothetical way. Lecha, so lecha is the preposition to or for, like this one here, right, to or for. There's something, it can be other things, but that's the basic translation most of the time. And the cha meaning you, right? So to you or for yourself. So, and you take for yourself, leisha. Okay, so isha, as I said before, is woman. It's the same as this, except this one is not in a noun construct form. So normally it looks like this, but then when it gets to be a woman of, it's in this form, right? So this means woman or wife. And in this case, it actually means a wife. This could be translated for, or in this case, you could translate it as. It means that has that meaning. So, and you take to yourself for a wife. Okay, and implying you're taking her. All right, so the whole phrase ends up being translated, and you see among the captives a woman of beautiful form, or a woman of beauty of form, if we want to say it that way, and you desire her, and you take for yourself for a wife. Okay, I'm not going to go any further with that, and I'm definitely not going to get into the implications of this, social and theological implications of this verse. That's for you to study. But that's all for today, and maybe, God willing, for later in the week, we will move on and read a few more verses. So till then, Shavua Tov, and we'll talk to you later.